Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir.
I spent quite a bit of time on the phone with Jim Vogel from PlanCon, and you haven't had an opportunity to get back in touch with him, but PlanCon as a source of money does not even exist. There's no money appropriated to pay for the hundreds of PlanCon projects that have not been funded. This has been used as an excuse to really timelines and all losing funding. If there was PlanCon money, the PlanCon money gets used only to offset the debt service throughout the course of the loan. Is that correct?
Correct. And over the 20 years, I believe that you're looking at it, would actually amount to more than $3 million because it translates to a percentage payment.
But in fact, the PlanCon, as it has been described, does not exist. There has been no money appropriated, let alone money being tied up in the debate between the governor and all. The money does not exist. Is that correct?
The eligibility to receive the money that you have exists. The timing of the disbursement of that money, I agree. I don't think anybody here or even in the state down in Harrisburg could tell you the answer to that question. But you are...
Well, I did the best I could. I called the man who's in charge, Jim Vogel, and Jim said it does not exist. The money is not only tied up in the battles in Harrisburg, it hasn't been appropriated. The money is not available. Even if our governor comes to agreement and they agree on a budget, the money is still not there. There is no PlanCon money to fund these existing projects.
Okay, so I'll just, I guess what I understand what you may be proposing is that are you going to authorize us not to look at reimbursement eligibility?
No, I'm simply saying that we've been told to get the facts, get the information. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm getting the facts. And the facts are that PlanCon has been used as a reason that we can't stop, we got to keep, and that's not a fact. The fact is that PlanCon as a source of funding does not exist. When it does exist, when the money is available, the money will not be, we won't get a lump sum, it will be simply used to pay debt service.
You're correct, that's how it's always been.
Okay.
Bob, can I speak here?
Sure.
Just for a second. The previous board left people under the impression that, well, they didn't just leave them under the impression. They told people that we need to get that PlanCon money because that PlanCon money can be used out at the valley. Now, number one, if there isn't any PlanCon money, how's it going to be used out at the valley? But number two, if that PlanCon money got here today, it wouldn't get here in a lump sum check. It's spread out over 20 years. So how are you going to use that? How would they use that at the valley?
My understanding was not that at all. It was stated in the Act 34 hearing by Ken Phillips, who spoke earlier tonight, your financial consultant, that they put the financing together without considering the reimbursement because they didn't know when it was going to be dispersed. So the financing was planned without it. What I think you recall being spent at the Valley was part of the $2 million energy grant. That's what I recall, some of that being rolled over to help that project, to what extent it might be.
And the previous board said that the PlanCon money and that part of, well, we all know that the $2 million is what money's sitting there waiting for us, but in the original project, we had to spend $900 million or $900,000 to get that $2 million. Correct?
Correct. You had to spend some money to get it.
Right, and that's only logical. But it was stated that the PlanCon money, along with the lead money, would go out to the valley. But if it's spread out over 20 years, that money isn't going out to the valley.
Well, in a sense, it could go out to the valley in effectively lowering your taxes. So when the Loyalsock Valley debt service comes online, if and when it does, you'll be in a lower tax situation than you would be without the reimbursement. So you're eligible for more financing.
If there's a reimbursement.
That's correct. And everybody says that. It's you know, I don't want to call it a joke. I don't want to be flippant about it, but everybody has this conversation across the state. It's a law. The law is on the books. You are legally, the state is legally obligated to pay you. It's just that politics, as you know, is crazy today, and that program got caught up in it. And there are people waiting, but there has been no law change to say that you're never going to get your money. It's a timing thing. So if is it 1 day, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. And that is the situation.
One more question for you. The referendum that was supposed to be put on in July, that was never put on, was it?
The moratorium, yes it was.
The moratorium.
Yes, the moratorium.
It was put on in July?
Yes, it was. The second moratorium went into effect, to our surprise, with the pro-education governor.
Well, has there ever been a district that's been approved for PlanCon and didn't get the money? Do you know if that ever happened? Where a district was approved,
Right.
to receive reimbursement, then you built the building,
Right.
and then for some reason you never got the money. Did you
Well,
ever know that?
There's 166
Yeah,
of
there-
them
That are waiting for the
there are
money.
people
that are waiting
Has
for
there
the
ever
money.
been that said, nope, sorry guys, you're not gonna get your money?
166 of them.
The only problem with that is you can't count on money, you don't know when you're gonna get it.
But if you use that same logic, Ron, we can't upgrade our school anymore. The money for this school, this new budget coming up hasn't been allocated either. Every governmental agency has to go on the fact that every year that government agency has to do its budget. And you have to wait for that budget to be approved and money to be allocated.
That money is in the budget once it's approved.
Right.
But PlanCon is not. It's not even in the budget. The money to reimburse the school for special ed, for all these different programs, it's in the proposition. It just doesn't have approval. When that's approved, the PlanCon isn't part of that. Plus, we were told by the PlanCon man that there was never a July 1st stop on all PlanCon submittals.
I can speak to that. The July 1st moratorium was part of the budget language. Since the budget hasn't been passed, is it or isn't it a part of, is it or isn't it in effect? And when the budget is passed, does it be retroactively enforced back to the July 1st date? We have that conversation all the time in our office. What PlanCon is doing is accepting Part A's, but they're not acting on them. They're in a separate pile, the ones that came in after July 1st, because they don't know how this language is going to play out with if and when the budget is approved.
I'm very active in Harrisburg and very active with the legislators. They are actually looking at their goal. The governor's goal is to redo PlanCon, to try to figure out a different way to structure PlanCon. So there is momentum in both House and Senate to actually pay up PlanCon, where there's actually bills introduced. One of them would actually pay up PlanCon, and they can actually get rid of it and recreate it. That's why they want to do a moratorium, because they actually want to tear it apart and fix it, do something different with it. But they know they can't really do that while there's 160 schools still on that list. So that is one option that's being kicked around in Harrisburg.
Well,
When we first started the study, we actually said up front, there's two things we ought to do. One, we won't plan on PlanCon money, because you don't know for sure. Especially back then when we first started, there was a moratorium. And then when we talked to our financial guys, let's look at worst case scenario, because we're not sure what the economy is going to do. So we planned for both of those things. So when you see 1.8 millage needed, new mills needed to fund this, that estimate was based on no reimbursement and some pretty high interest rates. We actually sit here today pretty confident that the interest rates are going to be much better than what we planned, and pretty confident that PlanCon will happen because we are approved. I can't gonna happen tomorrow.
No,
I can tell you, I'm pretty confident will happen.
excuse me, but no, the numbers that were in the paperwork were 3%, and now we're hearing it's not 3%. So what was listed in there, 2.77 million, is 3.5 million right now, and it's not going to go lower. So
The projection was based on interest rates. As you can see in the documents that they gave you today, if you look at those subcategories underneath, it talks about a 4.23% interest rate. That's what it's projected to be at. That's worst case scenario. He told you today he's thinking 3.13, maybe 3.12. That's what he's projecting to be.
Here's what I suggest about this reimbursement issue. Is it's always talked about, nobody knows the answer. But since you do have a Part G approval, which is a guarantee of reimbursable eligibility or reimbursement eligibility, I'm going to suggest very strongly that you at least have some sort of an option that looks at maintaining the eligibility if you're going to do some sort of different project, let's say that. I think you should know what it would take to do or maintain that eligibility, rather than just walking away. And I don't really think you're saying that.
No, we're not saying that.
no, I'm not. I just want it to be. I just want the PlanCon thing and the dialogue about PlanCon. I want to hear less about it because it's not that important. When you're not going to get it, it's not that important. And they haven't been paid for years. Here's 354 projects which have been approved that haven't been funded. We're not number one on that list. We're not even close to number one. So it could be, when you say it could 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, PlanCon, the discussion about PlanCon as far as the timelines go shouldn't be introduced. It's enough of PlanCon as far as the board goes. And yes, I have been in contact with our representatives, and PlanCon is going to go away. And how it's going to be replaced, we don't know that yet. But PlanCon, it's been here since '73, it's going to go away. So when it goes away and how many people are left without getting funding, but even if we did get the funding, it's not a lump sum. I just think it's important that when we're told as a board that we have to get the facts, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the facts. And I want to straighten out the PlanCon misconception and let the public know how it is funded, if it is ever funded. And that's my talk on PlanCon.
Okay, but we need to translate that into action. I don't want to start a big argument, but I hear what you're saying, and I hear this week in, week out, different districts all over the state. What it usually boils down to, everybody's upset, they're mad at the state, they're not going to get their money, they don't like PlanCon. PlanCon is a complex thing. I agree with many of the things you're saying, and I would like to boil it down to, do you want me to analyze your project to maintain your eligibility or not? It is a lot of work, and if you're not interested in doing it, we won't, and we'd be happy not to do it.
Do you need a motion? Do you need an approval tonight to get started?
No.
Well, I get started on an awful lot of other things, and not,
Without talking?
yeah, without looking at that.
Because PlanCon is nice, sort of the idea, but it's like you said, it's like everybody else says, it's for the students. So the changes, the improvements are not because PlanCon, because the state is going to give us a couple of percent. So the question I have is, do you need us to do anything tonight to get you started reviewing, designing, looking at, all those sorts of things?
No, but if you want me to include it, I'll need it by the 9th, I guess. That's your next meeting, so I can finish up by your meeting at the end of February.
So you don't need a motion tonight?
I need a motion to do the other things, yeah.
You need a motion to review the study,
yeah,
and work on that.
sure. To engage
right.
the additional services part of the contract, and get going on that, and get as much done. So in about a month, I can have this thing ready for you. But I can't wait till the third week to do the PlanCon thing.
Well, our next meeting is
Paul,
the second
I had one more
Tuesday.
question. Going back to the original question from Dr. Bowers, and
Yeah.
that question was, has there ever been a district that was approved for PlanCon money and did not receive it?
Prior to the moratorium stuff over the last couple of years, I'm not aware of that. It used to be like clockwork.
Okay, so you're aware of no district being approved and then never having received it?
I don't know of any district.
I mean, how many
But-
moratoriums have you seen to it?
And
So,
As
so
far as
this
we're
notion that it never happens and we've never seen it happen, we're kind of in charted territories, right? You just how many you have moratoriums you've never seen in your career, right?
Well, I know that this issue can be kicked to one side or the other of the aisle and used as a positive or negative issue very easily because there's so much of it that's misunderstood, but I'm not here to go through all that detail.
One question I have that kind of tags along with that question. You said that to your knowledge, before the moratorium, there hasn't been any districts that have been denied
After they got their guarantee
But-
with PlanCon Part G.
you're not, what you're not saying is, though, correct me if I'm wrong, is that those ones before the moratorium all received their money.
Well, we have to be precise with our definitions then, but
Well, I'm just saying.
there's like 300 districts and it's down to 160 or whatever, 106, that got caught up in this reimbursement delay / moratorium / second moratorium. It's a big window of stuff going on. There's districts caught in that. Before that is back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, in the late 80s when I first started doing this stuff. I don't recall anybody having their reimbursement stopped unless they did it before they got their final guarantee. Some districts have stumbled and didn't do all the things they needed to do, or they did things out of sequence.
Is that Part H you're referring to?
Part G is your guarantee, I believe.
Okay, G, Part G, there's
Oh, I'm sorry, Part H.
Yeah, Part
G,
H is
yes,
final.
I'm sorry, Part H. And so I've seen the reviewers at PDE talk about an unfortunate event where some district who was doing 3 projects stumbled in the process and lost the eligibility for $15 million. It's $5 million each approximately. So I know of that, but once the district has received their guarantee in Part H, then I don't know. Of course, I don't know of every single situation, but in my experience, I don't know of anybody who has where it's been taken away or stopped.
Kind of, it actually didn't answer my question. Districts that have been approved for Part H, which is guaranteed reimbursement, how many years have some of them schools been waiting for that reimbursement?
A couple at least, maybe 3 going into the 3rd year. Did he say it? Did he mention that to you?
Oh, no, he just said that there were many Part H approvals that aren't being funded and that are not, there's no money appropriated for them. I think that's an important thing that I keep, and I agree that in the Act 34 hearing, that it is specified that there may be a moratorium on it, and there is in fact a moratorium on it. So, but again, I know that some of the numbers were calculated based on not getting that money, but my question then ended up being is, why do we hear so much about the importance of it when in fact it's not even there? It's a non-entity right now.
Good point. I won't name the district, but it's a fairly wealthy district their aid ratio is quite low, meaning that the percentage of reimbursement they get is a low percentage. They were doing over $175 million worth of school improvements, new schools, additions and renovations, and they said to me, "Paul, we're not going to do PlanCon." And it was worth about $15 to $20 million relative to the $175 million worth of construction work. And they walked away from it.
You're going to see more of that. I
Quite
believe
frankly.
that the complexity of it, well, they're going to eliminate it anyhow. So
That was the one story. I think every other client has gone after it. And this moratorium thing just kind of slowed it up.
Just an estimate. What has it cost the district to go after the PlanCon money? I mean, I realize you have a lot to do to.
Well, that's part of the definition of the previous project. You have to follow a process of educational program development, educational specification development, two different things. You have to follow their planning process to document the way you are reviewing issues and sequencing issues. It's a very sequential process. The state wants you to follow that because it is a good process to follow. It's tried and true. It's followed in, they don't call it PlanCon in other states, but they pretty much follow the same kind of sequence of study, option development, costing, option selection, and then schematic design, design development, construction documentation, building specifications, bidding. And they call that process PlanCon here. Now, if you follow that and you follow some of their criteria, such as bringing the building up to current construction standards, the state doesn't want to give you money if you're not going to improve your building up to current construction standards. And that essentially falls back on the building codes, Americans with Disabilities Act, and other regulatory agencies, land development plan, county regulatory agencies, and local municipality, borough zoning, and so on. As long as you have all the approvals from all those agencies and review people, then the state feels very strong about you meeting current construction standards and all the rules and regulations that govern the project. And that's what we did for your project. So how much did it cost? A lot of it you would do normally, even if we didn't do PlanCon. You would still, as I said, in all the other states, you would still follow this sequence. It makes sense to follow that sequence. If you and I are to form a business and invent education architecture, if we did a great job, we would probably put that sequence together. So so how much does it cost? Well, it's the normal cost of the work. And you know what the fees were.
Well, the LEAP grant, we know that it's about $900,000 to get that $2 million. And I agree with what you said, that some of the stuff things that you would normally do, and they just happen to be what PlanCon wants. The extra stuff that you wouldn't normally do that is a requirement for PlanCon, plus all you have to do, is there a round dollar figure? How much extra it costs the district to get $3.5 million? I mean, just a round figure.
I'm not trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out what you wouldn't do if you didn't follow, if you didn't do.
I mean, there's.
I think one way to answer it, if I may, the 20 to 40-year life expectancy of the building systems. Bringing the building up to current construction standard. If that's not your goal, and you had, for instance, if you walked into our office 2 years ago and said, we have $5 million, we want to improve this building by $5 million, will you work with us? Absolutely. I mean, that's your budget. We'll tell you, we'll give you the best scope of work and probably 4 or 5 options on how to apply that $5 million. You're never going to get reimbursement because you wouldn't be able to meet PlanCon criteria. But so let's take away the 20 to 40-year lifespan expectancy and the current construction standards. It's not how much you pay us to fill reduce your cost. Now, to answer your question specifically, does it go from 36 to 25 to 20 to 15 to 10 to 5? I don't know where you're going with the budget, but that's how many, there's an infinite number of cost reductions, if you will, depending on your criteria that sets the project scope. I hope I didn't.
No, that's
Very fair answer.
This time, I'll make a motion to have them, CRA, go over the value engineering study and proceed with everything, but we'll hold off on the PlanCon, as you said. We don't need to do that. We have a second.
Mr. Snell, are you saying to examine all avenues, except avenues that would include PlanCon money? Is that what you're saying?
Until we get more information on PlanCon, yeah, that's, and I'm not saying, Bill, that we won't pursue PlanCon. I'm saying at this time, until you're gonna talk with
Jim Vogel, yeah.
give him a chance to talk to Jim Vogel and come back to the next board meeting and let us know a little bit more about it so we can make a better decision on whether to have them go ahead with the plan.
You know, I fear that just sets us back 2 more weeks. I'm very concerned starting into the 8th week tomorrow of the building project sitting idle. And it shouldn't have taken this long. It should not have taken this long. And I feel that if CRA is going to pursue these options, most certainly, I find it ridiculous to say don't pursue a PlanCon option just because members of the board have the opinion it'll never happen. You know, none of us can read tomorrow's newspaper today, okay? So nobody knows.
I second the motion.
It's already been seconded.
Oh, good.
Let me ask you this. Will that set you back 2 weeks, or is there enough?
There's another issue spinning around in my head. And I wish I had my conversation with Jim Vogel today, but I know financially you'd be in a better situation if you stayed with your current contractors. I think that's pretty much the consensus of everybody. That can happen if PDE allows that. It might be an easy thing to stay on board with PlanCon. It doesn't. I don't see where it's going to be that big of a deal. If you know,
He led us to believe
that
that things could be done with change orders without rebid, and even up to step H, that can be.
okay, that isn't that good. I mean, that means to me you want to stay with PlanCon. It's not going to cost you any more money.
No, that's right.
You're going to let us know this is part of what you're going to do in the next couple of weeks, right? You're going to look at all these different things that we talked about, all these different things that are proposed.
Yeah.
And so nobody said, the motion has nothing to do with PlanCon. Did not say PlanCon. It said go ahead and get started. Am I right, Ron?
I did take. I'll amend the motion to include PlanCon.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Mr. President, what would be the cost per hour? This is not included in the contract, correct?
No, the cost per hour is included, but it is an additional service.
So what will this cost us for the next month? Take a look at this.
It'll be a team of people, consultants. Dick will be involved, Scott will be involved, myself will be involved. 4 weeks of time. It ranges from probably $100 to $140, $150 an hour, something along those lines. Now, if it breaks into a project, I think we should talk about a lump sum fee. Decide to go forward. You don't want to be in the hourly situation longer than a month.
Yeah, I think we're just money work.
But the specific answer to that question is in that attachment of the contract. I think Bob can get that to you, a single page.
You want let's have a,
Mr. Saul, could you repeat the motion, please?
The motion, as I have it recorded, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. President, is to authorize Crabtree, Borball and Associates to prepare responses to the Montoursville Area High School Value Engineering Study prepared by Bassett Engineering Incorporated.
That's good for me.
Mr. Hegemeyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Johns? Mr. Kaplan?
Yes?
Mr. Conkle?
No.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Mrs. Marriott?
I'm going to say no.
Mr. McCleary? Mr. Ruffing?
I'm going to say no based on the fact that this work has already been done.
And Mr. Snell?
yes. Motion is passed.
Paul, will you be in touch with somebody about maybe a 2-week